More than 1.5 million Americans live with an autism disorder that impairs how a person learns, behaves, and communicates. Most people are diagnosed when they're kids, but we don't know what causes it, and there is no cure. Treatments are an enormous financial burden as well. One medical study estimates that the lifetime cost of supporting a person with autism can be over $2 million. I'm working to uncover the causes of this disorder so that we can create better treatments and find the first cure. These disorders impact all areas of daily life for the children living with the disorder, as well as their caregivers and their community. When a loved one has an intellectual or social disability, the lives of those around them are always affected. Their work plans, money plans, family plans, travel plans, retirement plans, everything. Our goal is to treat these disorders and improve quality of life for everyone involved. However, you have to diagnose the cause of the problem before you can build a solution. That's what I'm doing in the lab. I study how the brain develops to find where things go wrong in developmental disorders like autism. My focus is on a protein that's part of the cell skeleton, a protein named adducin. Let me introduce you. Cells in our body come in all shapes and sizes, and adducin is found in all of them. We especially want to focus on adducin in one specific type of cell in the brain, called neurons. The neurons that make up our brain have a strange shape. Their long tail, called an axon, carries signals quickly over long distances. These signals enter the main cell body on one end and send an electrical pulse down the axon to signal to other neurons, like a miniature game of telephone. Neurons' ability to send these signals is crucial for our daily function, allowing us to think, feel, and communicate. A neuron's strange shape is tailored for these signals, and that customization requires a special cellular skeleton made possible by adducin. I study how adducin behaves in brain development from two angles. First, I look at the changes that occur as the protein adducin is produced from the related DNA. And second, I'm investigating how those changes, as well as unexpected mutations, affect brain development and structure later on. Let's talk about this first angle. Each cell in our body contains a recipe for all the proteins it needs to make. These proteins help with everything from cell structure to our immune system to carrying messages throughout our body. This collection of recipes is our DNA. But unlike a real recipe book, we don't use the entire book whenever we make one finished product, which would be protein. Instead, we have a step in the middle, where it's as though we print out an online recipe and use that printout instead. This printout would be our mRNA. Scientists used to think it was just those three steps, DNA to mRNA to protein. Producing actual proteins from genes in our DNA isn't quite so simple. Less than 50 years ago, we found that cells take some liberty with their recipe printouts. Just like how some home chefs take recipes and make it their own by tweaking certain instructions, sometimes our cells use different parts of mRNA in different patterns through a process called alternative splicing. This means that from one recipe in the recipe book, from one gene in our DNA, we can produce sometimes hundreds of variations of the same protein. While my protein, adducin, doesn't quite hit the hundreds, it also has multiple forms. But there is one form of adducin only found in neurons, and interestingly enough, adducin also creates a special pattern in the neuron's cell skeleton. Adducin normally looks like this in our cells. Highlighted in green, its pattern almost looks like a net across the cell surface to hold things together. But adducin creates a special pattern in the neuron. It forms regularly spaced rings all along the axon. We have more than 200 different types of cells, yet this pattern has never been seen in any other type. This unusual pattern is important to a neuron's shape and function. If anything went wrong with this cell skeleton, how the neurons and how our brains function would have problems. My lab found that there is one line of instruction in the middle of the mRNA that is usually left out when the mRNA is created in most cells. This line of instruction, like one step in a recipe, is kept in some neuron mRNA, and it tells the mechanism that reads the mRNA to make proteins to just stop after that line. This means that the adducin produced from this neuron mRNA misses a large chunk of the end of the protein. We're looking to solve the mystery of this missing chunk by studying the mRNA and proteins in different cells. Why do only neurons have this special form of adducin? How does this one-of-a-kind pattern in neurons impact the signals our brains produce every day? When we discover how this important protein is produced from our genes, we can understand when and how brain development can go astray. We hope to one day be able to stop it before it happens. So that's the first angle, exploring adducin's production from genes into protein. For the second angle, I look at how the changes mentioned before actually play out beyond the lab, and whether changes found in patients can help us draw a clearer picture of what exactly goes on in brain development. I am working on answers for a few questions that could change the landscape for developmental disorders like autism. Does using the wrong form of adducin in our neurons affect how they develop and function, and why? How do such tiny changes in our cells have huge ripple effects on our ability to communicate and interact with people? Our brains and the signals they're constantly firing make up who we are. And when things go wrong, it often causes a chain reaction of problems. Before we can treat these problems, we need to tease out what exactly is causing them and what mechanisms help make the brain what it is. We want to work towards the big goal of improving quality of life and providing treatment options to families and loved ones with social or intellectual disabilities, with developmental disorders such as autism. If you have a loved one with an intellectual or social disability and are looking for answers, your support can help us find them faster. Connect with me below to support this research. Together, we can take steps forward and begin to unravel the mystery of how the brain works and develops, starting with adducin.